Go out and see. The administrator said to them, go out and see if the time for slaughtering has arrived. If it has arrived, the one who sees it says, Barke, Barke. Matthias ben Shmuel says, the whole of the east has lit up as far as Hebron. And he says, yes. Why was this necessary? Because one time the moon's light rose and they thought that the east had lit up, so they slaughtered this daily sacrifice and then had to take it out to the place of burning. They took the Kohen Gadol down to the mikveh, and this was the rule in the temple. Whoever moves his bow, or skip the page. Sorry, is that right? Yeah. Okay. This was the rule in the temple. Whoever moved his bowels needed immersion, and whoever urinated needed to wash his hands and his feet. No person may enter the temple courtyard for service, even if he is tahor, until he immerses himself in a mikvah. On this day, the Kohen Gadol immerses himself 5 times and washes his hands and feet 10 times. All of them are in the holy atop the parva chamber, except for this one only. Okay.
So Mishna Dal, we carry on with the Seder HaMishna. Peres Husadin shall butz bein ola bein ha'am. So the other Kohanim would take an expensive cloth and spread it up as a screen, a mechitza between him and the people to preserve his tznius. Okay. Pashat Rad B'Taval. So he went into the mikveh. And Toiveld Alav and Istapak, he came up and dried off. Aviolo Big Day Zahav, and they gave him the golden clothes. So those are his regular fall clothes, because anything that the first thing that he's going to have to do is the tamid, and anything that's done normally during the year must be done in his regular golden vestments. Okay, it's only the avodah that's specific to Yom Kippur that he's going to put on the white clothes for. Okay, and then he comes and he washes his hands and feet. And they bring him the tamid. So he did the shechita. The karatzo, they use the word karatzo over here, as in to teach that he does it sort of the minimum amount in order to make a kosher shechita. In other words, 1.5 simanim of the animal, if you remember from Cholin, because he needed to hurry to catch the blood, because all of the avodah has to be done by him. Normally you could have 2 kohanim, one doing the shechita and one doing the kabbalah.
Right.
But in this case, he has to both shecht it and catch the blood. So he has to do the minimum. And then another kohen can finish cutting it open more so to catch more of the blood, but he has to catch the blood with his other hand. So that's one of the little tricky parts. So he has to. So somebody else will finish off the shechita. Kibel es hadam. So then the kohen gadol catches the blood. Uzrako, and then he throws it on the mizbeach. Nichnas lehaktir ketoris shel shachar. Then he goes into to do the Ketoris service of Lahetiv Haneros, and to light the candles, or to set up the candles at least. And then he comes to sacrifice the head and the limbs that's of the tamid. And his own regular daily sacrifices, a kohen gadol, he has to bring the minchas chavitin and the yain and the nesachim that come with the morning tamid. So all of that. Remember, we learned just a few mishnayos ago that there are all these 9 kohanim taking up the pieces of the tamid and the nesachim going up. So all of this is done by the kohen gadol today. There's a lot to do.
Right.
Okay. So the morning incense was done between the blood service of the tamid and taking the avarim onto this mizbeach. Shel bein ha'arbayim, in the afternoon, however, bein avarim lenesachim. Then the afternoon ketoris is done after between the limbs and the libations that go with it. Im haya kohen gadol zakeno istanis. If, however, the kohen gadol was old, infirm, or he didn't have the stomach for for doing things, getting into cold water. Mechamin lo chamin, they can give him warm water. So they could have kept water on the boil since before Yom Kippur, and they can add it into the cold water in the mikveh. Remember, once a mikveh is a complete mikveh, you're allowed to put 9 shurvin in.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so if he's an isness and can't take the cold water, then then he can add the hot water into it. Heavy uhula base of parva. So then they bring him into the chamber called the base of parva, and on its roof again was another mikveh for his tevila. Okay. By Kodesh Haisa, of course, the base of parva was inside the Azara. Perisus Sadin Shalbutz Beino Lebeina Amen. Once again, they put this linen mechitza up between him and everyone else. Kidesh Yadav Raglav, so he washes his hands and feet and undresses. Rabbi Meir Omer Pashat Kidesh Yadav Raglav. He says, Rabbi Meir says that the order is the other way. That first he undresses, then he washes his hands, because according to Rabbi Meir, the kiddush of Yadayim Raglaim is for the honor of the clothing that he's wearing. Is not because of the honor of the clothing that he's going to be taking off. It's rather that it has to be before and after the tevila. So halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Meir. Are you with me?
I'm with you right here.
Okay, great. Okay. Yorad v'tavel alav nistabag. So then he goes down to the mikveh and comes out and towels off. Heviulo big day lavan. Now he wears the white garments. Lavash yadav v'raglav. And then he so once he's put on the white garments, then he once again sanctifies his hands and feet in washing them from a kli. Okay.
How did they must have so many garments. I mean, the blood is not so easy to get off, on a white garment especially.
Look, the white garments are specifically for Yom Kippur.
Right.
So yes, and he only wears them once, and in fact he wears different white garments for the morning and for the afternoon.
Right. Well, okay, all right.
Gimel.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Shekalim.
Oh, I thought you were saying base gimel on this, but it wasn't. I knew that. No, okay. Here we go. Chet gimel. A knife which was found on the 14th of Nisan may be used immediately for slaughter, but if it was found on the 13th of Nisan, it must be immersed again. And a meat cleaver, whether found on the 13th or on the 14th, he must immerse again, unless the 14th fell on the Sabbath, in which case he may slaughter it immediately. But if it was found on the 15th of Nisan, he may slaughter with it immediately. If it was found tied to a knife, then it is considered as the knife. If a curtain has been contaminated through contact with a secondary tumah, they immerse it within the temple complex, and they may bring it in immediately. But if it was contaminated through contact with a primary tumah, then they immerse it outside the temple complex, and they spread it out to dry in the khel. If it was a new curtain, they would spread it out upon the roof of the portico so that people may see their handicraft, for it was beautiful. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said in the name of Reb Shimon, son of the deputy Kohen Gadol, the curtain was 1 handbreadth thick, woven upon 72 threads, each thread composed of 24 filaments, 40 cubits long and 20 cubits wide, and made of 82 times 10,000. That would make 2 new curtains every. They would make 2 new curtains every year, and 300 kohanim would immerse it.
Okay. Tachim, Vav Daled.
Let me see. After we're going to finish this tomorrow. So where are we going after Shkalim?
After Shkalim is Yoma.
Yom. Oh, so I don't take out a new one. Okay. Pesachim. Vav Daled. A chagiga may be brought from the flocks, from cattle, from sheep, or from goats, from males or from females, and it may be eaten for the 2 days and 1 night. If one slaughtered the Pesach offering for some other designation on the Sabbath, he is liable, therefore, for a sin offering and all the other sacrifices that he slaughtered with the designation of a Pesach offering. If they are not suitable, he is liable for a sin offering. But if they are suitable, Reb Eliezer obligates him to bring a sin offering, but Reb Yeshua absolves him. Said Reb Eliezer, if the Pesach, which is permitted on the Sabbath for his own designation, if he changes designation, he's liable. Then other sacrifices which are forbidden on the Sabbath, even for their own designation, if he changed their designation, he should surely be liable. If Yeshua said to him, not so. If you said thus of this Pesach, when he changed it to a forbidden matter, will you say thus of other sacrifices, when he changed them to a permitted matter? Reb Eliezer says, let public offerings prove it, for they are permitted to be offered for their own designations, yet one who slaughters other sacrifices for their designations is liable. But Yeshua said to him, not so. If you say this of public offerings which have a limit, will you say thus of the Pesach which has no limit? Meir says, even one who slaughters other sacrifices for the designation of public offerings is not liable. Okay. If one slaughtered it for those who cannot eat of it, or for those not registered for it, for uncircumcised or contaminated people, he is liable. However, if he slaughters for those who can eat of it, and those who cannot eat of it, for those registered and for those not registered, for those circumcised and uncircumcised, for those who are cleansed and those who are cleansed, and to those who are contaminated, he is not liable. If one slaughtered it and it was found to have a blemish, he is liable. If one slaughtered it and was found to be a treifa internally, it is not liable. If one slaughtered it and it became known that the owners had withdrawn from it or had died or had become contaminated, he is not liable because he slaughtered with permission. Okay.
Okay, Shabbos Aleph Yud Aleph.
Excuse me.
Right.
We may lower the Pesach sacrifice into the oven near nightfall, and we may ignite with chips the fire on the fire in the temple fire chamber. But in the country, this may not be done unless there is sufficient time for the fire to take hold of most of them. But Yehuda says with charcoal, it is permitted as long as there is sufficient time for the fire to take hold of any amount. With what may we light the Sabbath light, and what may we not light? We may light neither with cedar bast, nor with uncarded flax, nor with floor silk, nor with willow bast, nor with desert fiber, nor with sea moss, nor may we light with pitch, nor with wax, nor with cottonseed oil, nor with oil that must be burnt, nor with oil with fat from a sheep's tail or tallow. Nachum the Mead says we may light with boiled tallow, but the comments say whether boiled or not boiled, we may not light with it. We may not light with oil that must be burnt on Yom Tov. Yishmael says we may not light with tar because of honor due the Sabbath, but the sages permit lighting with all oils, namely with sesame oil, with nut oil, with radish oil, with fish oil, or kosolint. I don't know how to say that word. Kolasint oil, with tar, or with nefata. The Tarfon says we may light only with olive oil. We may not.
That's it.
Okay. But maybe about leaking. Okay.
Yeah. Yadayim Aleph Hey.
Okay. The water into which the baker dips the rolls is invalid, but if he rinses his hands in it, it is valid. Everyone is qualified to pour water on hands, even a deaf, mute, an imbecile, or a minor. One may place a barrel between his knees and wash his hands from it, and one may turn a barrel on its side and wash his hands from it, and an ape may pour water over the handle. Rabbi Yossi invalidates the Natila in this last two cases. If one washed one hand with a single rinse, his hand is tahor. But as regards two hands with a single rinse, Rabbi Muir rules them tame unless he washes them with a revius of water. If a loaf of truma fed into the water, it is tahor, and Rabbi Yossi rolls it tame. If one poured the first waters in one place and the second waters in a different place, and a loaf of truma fell, if it fell into the first waters, he is tameh. If it fell into the second waters, he is tahor. If he poured the first and second waters in one place and the loaf of truma that fell there, it is tameh. If one poured the first waters and a splinter or gravel was found on his hands are tameh, because the last waters purify only the waters that were on the hand. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says regarding any organism that originates in water, it is tahor. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Slaughter blood of cattle, of beast, or of fowl, whether unclean or clean, whether bloodshed as a result of piercing, or bloodshed as a result of tearing, or the blood of bloodletting by which life escapes, they are liable for it. The blood of the spleen, the blood of the heart, the blood of the eggs, the blood of the fish, the blood of the locust, or the blood that oozes out, they are not liable for it. Rabbi Yehuda holds one liable for the blood that oozes out. Rabbi Akiva holds one liable to an asham talu for a doubtful case of a milah, but the sages exempt him. Rabbi Akiva agrees, however, that he does not bring his restitution until it becomes known to him and until he accompanies it with the unconditional asham. Said Red Tofrin, why should this person bring 2 ashamos? Rather let him bring restitution and its fifth, and let him bring an asham for 2 salem, and say, if I am surely guilty of my me'ilah, let this be my restitution and this my asham. If it is doubtful, the money is a donation and the asham is an asham talu. For from the same species from which he brings an obligation of doubt, he brings an obligation of certainty. Rabbi Akiva said to him, your words are acceptable in the case of a small me'ilah, but what if he is guilty of a doubtful case of me'ilah of 100 mana? It is not better for him that he bring an asham for 2 salim and not bring a doubtful restitution of 100 mana? Rabbi Akiva then agrees with Reb Tofin in the case of a small me'ilah. If a woman brought a bird chatos of doubt, if it became known to her before its neck was nipped that it had been definitely given birth, she must make it an unconditional chatos, for from the same species from which she brings an obligation of doubt, she brings an obligation of certainty.
Okay. And Baba Kama.
If a spark flies out from under a hammer and damages, he is liable. If a camel that is laden with flax stands in the public domain and its flax protrudes into a shop, catches fire from the shopkeeper's lamp and ignites a large tower, the owner of this camel is liable. If the shopkeeper leaves his lamp outside, the shopkeeper is liable. Rabbi Yehuda says, in the case of Hanukkah lights, he is exempt. The rule of 2-fold payment is more inclusive than the rule of 4-fold and even 5-fold and 5-fold payment. For the rule of 2-fold payment applies to both living things and to inanimate things, whereas the rule of 4-fold or 5-fold payments applies to exclusively with regard to an ox or a lamb. As it is said, if a man steals an ox or a lamb and slaughters it or sells it. One who steals after a thief does not pay the 2-fold payment, nor does he who slaughters or sells after a thief pay the 4-fold or 5-fold payment. If, according to 2 witnesses, a person stole, and according to them or according to 2 others, he slaughtered it or sold, he pays the 4-fold or 5-fold payment. If one stole and sold on Shabbos, stole and sold for idolatry, and stole and slaughtered on Yom Kippur, stole from his father and sold it, and then his father died, or stole and slaughtered, and then it consecrated, he pays the 4-fold or 5-fold payment. If one stole and slaughtered for medicated purposes for dogs, if one slaughters and is found to have an organic defect, or if one slaughters an ordinary animal in the temple courtyard, he pays the 4-fold or 5-fold payment, and Reb Shimon exempts him in these 2 instances. If according to that's it. Okay. All right.
All right.
Good.
All
All right.
A lovely day.
That was you too. Have a great day. I thank you again for those plugs. I will make arrangements to get them, Sunday or Monday or something. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.